Welcome to Game Theorem, where we have serious discussions about absurd entertainment.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Kira.
And today we're doing a bit of a simple episode, but it's one we've been wanting to do for quite a while. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
We're calling this like correcting our mistakes or something like that.
Basically, we're going over our past episodes and talking about any things we missed or wanted to correct.
Yeah, because we try to correct our mistakes when possible, but the episodic format naturally means that corrections are always at a delay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we've been making these podcast episodes for a few years now. Mm-hmm. And while we make them less frequently than we used to, still, like, we look back at some of our old episodes, and some of them we look back and we go like, okay, that was a good one. Like, that's one. Like, there's a few episodes that we're really proud of, right? Mm-hmm. But then there's some episodes where it's like, okay, that was kind of filler, or some episodes where we actually got things wrong.
Yep. So we're going over that.
Yeah, because we feel like it's at least important to try to set the record straight. We don't want to do misinformation. Mm-hmm. But obviously, no one's perfect. Everyone's going to get some mistakes.
Yeah, of course.
So this episode, we're going through our catalog of podcast episodes we've made and offering corrections. So if you've listened to any of our podcasts before, if you're a fan of us in any way, perhaps you'll find this interesting because we'll be touching on a great number of episodes we've made.
Mm-hmm. First, we're going to be talking about the Borderlands episode.
Yeah, the corporatocracies. Mm-hmm. So this was one of our very first episodes.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones we made.
And honestly, it was kind of a mistake to try to cram the Borderlands series all into a single episode.
Yeah, there was more than
we were prepared for.
Yeah.
We were still kind of like figuring out how to do everything. Now, I will admit, we didn't do as like fast talking as we did because we were still getting into it.
Yeah.
So maybe that could have made a difference. But still, because of our trying to cram it, we ended up barely even getting into talking about Tales from the Borderlands.
Which we finished at 3 a.m. the night before we released this.
Yes, we did. And honestly, it's the best Borderlands game. Just hands down.
Yeah, it is. I'm glad it's getting re-released now.
Yeah, because Telltale was like hostile takeover. It's not worth getting into. And I guess Borderlands 3 is out now, so...
Oh yeah, it wasn't out at the time we made that episode.
Right, so we could revisit Borderlands sometime.
Mm-hmm, yep.
But because of that, it's a bit out of date, that episode.
Yeah, it is.
Which happens.
Yeah, new games come out. Yep. You don't always get to go over them right away.
Yeah. So that's that one. Well, what's the next episode we want to talk about?
We're going to talk about our Barely Gay Characters episode.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't there something you wanted to say about it?
Well, we were talking about a very specific form of queer baiting where they say a character is queer, but they don't show it really in the material.
Well, no. It's kind of like what we were going for with Barely Gay Characters. Queer baiting, I think, would be more better defined as just like specifically trying to target a queer audience by giving them just a little taste of what all the straight people get all the time.
Yeah, true.
And it's effectively a capitalist term because it has to do a lot with your advertising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough.
But the point is, what we were talking about was basically just a very specific form of queer baiting, and we didn't really get into the concept of queer baiting as a whole, as a general topic.
Mm-hmm, because there's a lot more forms of it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Continuum, the peak of capitalism. Personally, I really liked this episode. This was still, baby leftist kind of situation, right? We probably didn't recognize all of the propaganda stuff that was in it, with the characters being cops and whatnot. But unlike a lot of shows that do propaganda, this one is actually self-critical of the whole cop thing. Mm-hmm. A lot of the cops kind of turn out to be bad guys, but there's always an undercurrent of like, well, there's the good ones, and that's a little gross. But it does seem to be critical of the concept of policing in many ways, at least.
Yeah.
But it's possible if we reevaluate that series, we might come out the other side with a bit more critical takes on it. But I think we'd still like it.
Yeah, I think so too. Next, we're going to talk about our first Homestuck episode.
The fantastic originality one.
Yep.
All right.
You mentioned this.
Yeah, we mentioned a guide to Spurb that we said we would finish, but it's been kind of sitting on the back burner for a while. And a while back, my Mac fried where that file was. Now I had backups, but I lost like 10 to 20 pages worth of it. And I just never really felt motivated to work on it again. So it's been like frozen on the back burner now. It's still one of those things that I'd like to finish doing, but I'm just juggling so many projects right now. So, Homestuck fans, I hope you understand.
Yep. Next is our Create Your Non-Binary Character episode.
Yeah, this episode has a lot of half understandings and oversimplifications.
Yeah, it was the first time we really critically analyzed gender personally, and the first time we ever talked about it on a podcast, too.
Yeah. So we apologize for the mistakes we made, but honestly, we were kind of glad we were able to demonstrate our naivety because, I mean, it's the idea of like having to go through this the first time and talking and thinking about gender is something that everyone or a lot of people have to go through when they come from ignorance like we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
So I think it's honestly fine that we were ignorant. The point is to learn, improve, and move on. But I mean, honestly, we'd probably have to do a whole episode dedicated to correcting the mistakes in this one.
Yeah, because we would just have to redo a lot of it.
Right. And, update it. Like a lot of the language we were using was a bit dated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I was still confused about what my identity was.
Yeah.
But I have narrowed it down since then. I am Ace. But honestly, I'm still kind of confused.
Yeah. I do think we did strike on something that was very important, though. And that's the limited gender portrayal in video games. How rare it is to see someone outside the binary.
Or not just that, but how unaddressed the complexities of gender are.
Yeah, true.
I mean, look at our recent episode on Cyberpunk 2077, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's been years, and still you have games completely flopping and not even caring to understand how this works.
Yeah.
The people who made Cyberpunk, their idea of... Cyberpunk 2077, I don't want to diss the genre. Mm-hmm. The people that made that game, their entire concept of gender was like... But science could make a woman with a wild. Like, seriously? That's the most your imagination can get?
Yeah.
Seriously?
It's cyberpunk. Come on. We talked about like things you could do in that episode.
Yeah.
We talked about
and this
cyberpunk.
is not going to be an explicit episode, so.
Yeah. All right. Pokemon from Arceus to Mewtwo.
Oh, right. So this was our first big Pokemon deep dive. And honestly, I think the first one was the best. Because the other ones since then are just like, summarizations of the game's stories. Which is interesting, but not as interesting.
Yeah.
So honestly, part of the reason we haven't continued this series is because, well, we were working on a different series with Loxton to completely revise the history of Pokemon into a standalone project. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's when coronavirus hit and those plans got canceled. A lot of things have just been up in the air. So our Pokemon series has been kind of in a limbo since then because we hope that maybe we can still do that project sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Like Loxton got a different project in the meantime, understandably, and he's been busy doing that.
He also literally got coronavirus, so he
nearly died from it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was out of commission for a while there.
And I mean, it's been hard on us too.
Mm-hmm. All right, Making a Seductive Woman episode. We just intended to follow that up with a Making a Seductive Man episode, but that never happened, and we're not sure if it ever will.
Yeah, but we wanted to acknowledge that and apologize for not following through on that.
Mm-hmm. Bayonetta, Slayer of Angels.
Oh, that one I think is one of our better episodes, to be honest.
It was really good.
Yeah, I really liked the lore of Bayonetta. I think the Bayonetta series is interesting. And I also like the questions it kind of, we talked about that it raises about like, sex positivity and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And also the pitfalls where it messes up. But we missed all of the references to Devil May Cry.
Because we have never played any of those games.
Yes. So apologies for that. That are what I think it was good chronology is lacking in a few ways.
All right. Smash, Creation and Destruction.
So we made this episode before the Smash Ultimate game came out. We figured that Smash Ultimate was going to be just kind of a clone, pseudo version of Smash 4, right? Just with more characters.
Yeah.
And in large part, that's not wrong, but they had a surprise thing when the game came out of like this pseudo story mode that changed the origin for Master Hand and Crazy Hand.
Oh, yeah.
So we bet wrong on that one. Basically, Master Hand and Crazy Hand are actually just two representations of two much larger otherworldly entities that represent light and dark. And so that would have kind of changed our discussion in that episode a bit had we known that.
Yeah. Lisa, A World Without Women. With this episode, there was a companion named Queen that we really wanted to be transgender, but we're pretty sure they were just a drag queen.
Yeah, we, especially me, really wanted a trans character, and we were just kind of trying to push that too hard in retrospect. So
Yeah.
we apologize for misrepresenting that character.
Yeah. Although it would have been the perfect game for a trans character.
I just really feel like the author was not equipped to talk about that.
Yeah, fair enough.
but
They talked about a lot of other things.
Yeah, but it's still a failure, a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Homestuck, Corrupting History.
Oh yeah, we made a few errors in that episode, but we corrected them in future Homestuck episodes as we learned more. Like, specifically the stuff about Obama and Homestuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we don't need to go into that.
Yep. How stuff works.
No, how stuff works.
How?
works.
Yeah. If we made this episode today, it would be a lot different because, of course, iHeartMedia added a ton of podcasts to it and basically nullified the How Stuff Works brand.
Yeah, no one even really uses the phrase "how stuff works" anymore, sadly. So some of the podcasts have since stopped running, or at least stopped running as part of the iHeartMedia network, like Omnibus, which had a host that has since become infamous more recently.
Yeah.
We're not gonna get into why.
Let's mention our favorite podcasts on the network.
All right, well, Worst Year Ever, Behind the Bleeps, Robert Evans, that's still good.
Oh, yeah, those are really good.
I still have a soft spot for Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, the Conspiracy Theorist podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with Ben, Noel, and Matt.
Stuff Mom Never Told You?
Yeah, with Annie and Samantha.
Yeah, I really like that one.
What else? Culture Kings. Shout out to Culture Kings.
Yeah.
Although they're not part of iHeartMedia anymore either.
Yeah, but...
They switched to Earwolf.
Yeah, but you loved them.
Yeah.
You literally wore their t-shirt at our... to get married to me.
Worth it. Okay, so next we have Infallible Gods of Games.
The only thing we want to mention about this is that...
Remember how Kira was warning that the creator of the Danganronpa series of games, Kodaka, left the company Spike Chunsoft to go make his passion uninhibited, to have his creative potential not sullied by councils and business. And it was basically just Danganronpa, but what if every character was elementary school age?
Yeah.
And it was still a mature game?
That's coming out on Switch. It's coming out now. It is a thing that exists, and that's horrifying.
It looks revolting.
It was literally in the last Nintendo Direct.
The biggest problem of Danganronpa was how young the characters are, and you made them younger? Are you kidding me? And let's be honest, we talked about the Danganronpa series at length. Kodaka was basically the worst thing about it. As he got more creative freedom, the games got worse.
I am, morbidly curious about this. It's It feels to me like a wreck that you can't look away from.
It's going to be super straight, super hetero, super white, super cis, and have like absolutely nothing interesting to say except if it has any stance on politics, it's going to be nihilism.
But yeah, I am, to be fair, I am morbidly curious how it turned out. Because, like, I wonder how far they'll go with the mature themes.
Also, let's be real. Danganronpa got lucky with Junko as the villain. Like Kodaka, obviously, we talked about Kodaka's sexism, right? And it's obvious that you were kind of supposed to hate Junko, right? Because she's a diva kind of thing, but she was also just awesome.
Yeah.
We talked about how Kodaka had the habit of writing female characters that you're supposed to hate, but everyone loves anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to pull that off again, especially if they're children.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, let's talk about MCU, Captain America.
Oh yeah, we meant to do more MCU, like Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast episodes. But honestly, after the first one, we got burned out, and we didn't want to continue doing a series that we only liked like a few of the movies of, especially when like more and more and more kept getting added to the list every year.
Yeah, one movie, and we were just done with the MCU.
Yeah, like
because it was just so bland
and exhausting.
Yeah, there's just so much of it now.
I thought maybe we could put up with it to get to the good ones, but there's just so many blah ones.
Yeah, honestly, if we want to do the good ones, we could do standalone episodes of the ones we like.
Which is probably what we should have done in the first place, but
yes, but you are a completionist.
Yeah. Sorry.
You know, I am... No wonder you don't play games very often anymore, because the ones you do play, you're such a completionist about that you have to play them for like 100 hours.
Well, I don't want to play a game unless I complete it.
No. There's a difference between completing a game and being completionist about it. And there are certain games you're completely completionist about.
I disagree.
I have a counter argument.
What?
Fallout. No, nothing else needed. Can we move on now?
I still don't see the distinction between completionism and just completing. Like,
oh my god. The difference is, if we were just completing, we would just do the main quest in Fallout and maybe some side quests we encountered along the way.
But that's not complete. There's still so much.
That is being completionist.
I take issue with your definition of the word complete.
There is a difference.
Your definition of the word complete,
oh my god, stop,
feels incomplete.
Of course it would to you, because you have to 100% everything.
No, you don't 100% it because you don't do the parts not worth doing. Like Super Mario Odyssey, right? You don't get every shine or whatever, like moon and whatever, right? You don't get all of them. You just complete all of the main ones, all the main quests, and then at the end when they go like, oh, here's 900 more for you to get in the world, you go, bleep you, I got other things to do.
Okay, but with Fallout, you were like literally determined to do everything in the world.
Look, I did a lot of personal growth to learn that it was fruitless to try to collect every single unique weapon in the game. Okay, but I'm still going to do every quest I can.
And by that you mean literally every single quest in the game and every single modded quest you could find.
Well, I mean, yes, unless of course I have to pick one quest or the other, in which case I'll pick the better one. Mm-hmm. Or, if we kill someone.
Let's move on. Thoughts on E3 2019? Remember when E3 was a thing?
What?
Guess we won't be making those episodes anymore.
Yeah, I guess not. Oh
well. Kirby, Destroyer of the Rich.
This is my fault. Huge misname opportunity when we should have called it Eating the Rich.
Yeah, that would have been amazing.
I can't believe what was wrong with me?
Eat the rich. To cancel or not to cancel.
Oh, this episode aged mostly just
surprisingly quickly.
Yeah. Basically, people use the word cancel culture to just mean getting any consequences. Therefore, the term has become nebulous and meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
We could probably do an episode to update this. Another episode discussing all the different things that could be called cancel culture.
It would be exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, there is genuine concerns over, like, online harassment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of like the one just form of what people call cancel culture.
Mm-hmm.
But people also literally call, like, getting arrested by the government and going to court cancel culture.
Yeah.
So, like, no, you're being charged with actual crimes.
Yep.
So, it's honestly political. We're gonna have to get political, but the right wing just does this all the time. They take words and they distort them so much so that no one knows what they mean, so they can be used for political expediency. It's the same thing that happened with McCarthyism. It's why almost not a single American, it feels like, knows what the word communism actually means.
Mm-hmm.
Or socialism, for that matter.
Yep.
I mean, literally, anti-fascism, anarchists, Antifa, anti-fascist, right?
All of that.
Yeah, they just completely misrepresent it. And, like, literally to this date, gender reveal parties have killed more people than Antifa. Also, literally anything has killed more people than Antifa.
Who mods games?
We're going to need to talk about this again. We're definitely going to have to, come back to this. Because, honestly, the amount of fascism that is in the modding community is quite frankly astounding. And honestly, we've gotten so much harassment just for acknowledging that.
Yep. So we need to talk about that more.
Yeah, like, oh my goodness. Like, people think of, like, the gamers as an idea. Like, we've talked about that, and, like, there's no such thing as a true gamer episode. But I think, like, when you go from the idea of the gamer community and you talk about the subset of, like, the mod using community, it, like, is amplified. It's even worse.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not universally true. We've met some nice people in there, but the harassment has just been enormous.
De-radicalizing our parents.
Didn't work.
Moving on. Hamilton, a revolution.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate that Hamilton was celebrated for being an abolitionist when literally just a few years later it was discovered that he secretly dealt in slaves and was a hypocrite.
Oh, right, yeah, I didn't know this, actually.
Yeah.
I had no idea that this happened, that this was discovered.
Right.
And,
I looked it up, and it's actually quite horrifying, just like the liberal brainwashing that went on here. Because it was this woman, this researcher, this historian, who was kind of new to the field. I forgot her name, sorry. And she's, like, looking into Hamilton, like, literally, like, going through his ledger. And there's this big narrative about Hamilton being an abolitionist, never doing slaves and whatnot. And she's like, I have his ledger, and it says he loaned a little black boy to his neighbor.
Wow.
How do you explain that? And literally other historians were like, oh, it's nothing. It's terminology. It's
Yeah.
They would, like, hand wave and excuse it. And she had to basically fight to get this recognized.
Yeah, that's awful.
Because people were invested in Hamilton's image.
Which is really ridiculous.
Yeah, it's really upsetting. But yeah, and so it turns out, like, Hamilton may have fought for abolitionism, but he still dealt in slavery and was thus a hypocrite. And you might want to say, like, oh, he's a product of his time or crap like that, but there were fellow men at the time that didn't have such hypocrisy. Thomas Paine, for example. He didn't deal in that hypocrisy, and honestly had a few political opinions, not too much, a few political opinions that were kind of better than what Hamilton was going for.
Yep. So yeah, we gave Hamilton more credit than he deserved, but the musical is still good work of art, and it is still slightly more accurate than what you get from a textbook.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it talks about many subjects of history that your standard American history textbook will just completely ignore.
Yeah.
Even if it does give Hamilton more credit than he deserves.
All right, let's talk about Outer Worlds space capitalism.
Well, first of all, there was DLC that came out like 2 years after the release, which was really weird. Like,
Yeah.
so few games have
There's
DLC.
another DLC coming out this year, I think.
Yeah, because like one of them has been released, the other one's coming out.
Yep.
But it's so weird that games do that. And I know it has to do with the strange launch they had on like the Epic Game Store or whatever. But still, like I can't think of any explanation for it that doesn't just involve the idea that the developers were really passionate about this project. And they just really want to add to it.
Yeah, and of course we haven't covered the DLC yet.
Yeah. We might have accidentally glorified the progressive movement at the end of the Gilded Age, however.
Yeah, because that was where the history split was
Right.
in this game.
So we just wanted to acknowledge that because we failed to acknowledge that while Roosevelt was progressive, his concerns were entirely centered around white men.
Yeah, certainly indigenous people would not have thought of him as anything other than a genocider.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an important caveat that we neglected to mention.
Yeah.
Also, we wanted to address that some people have criticized the Outer Worlds, saying that the society shown isn't truly capitalist, but more represents a monarchy, like a type of feudalism. And honestly, the truth here is that there are still a lot of feudalist holdovers in our capitalist society, like landlords and like the coronavirus bailout and stuff. Like pure capitalism without government backing simply doesn't exist in our world. And so I think the criticism was that the Outer Worlds didn't show like a hypothetical, like what if free market alone kind of thing going on, but rather that like the Halcyon Corporation was effectively a state.
Yeah, but like if some elements are more feudalist than the supposed meritocracy that capitalism is supposed to be, well, that's just the capitalism we literally live in.
Right. I feel like it's a bit pedantic to be like, well, that's not true capitalism, because like you're not wrong. But when most people think of the way capitalism works, they think of the very like neoliberal form of capitalism, of like state-backed capitalism.
The one we have now.
And I think Outer Worlds genuinely reflects that very well.
Yep. This too shall be censored.
Oh yeah, that one. So ironically, our episode on YouTube for this podcast episode, this too shall be censored. The episode was undemonetized.
Well, that's good, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, while YouTube is still getting worse every day in many various ways, there was enough backlash about the targeting of LGBT people that it was undone to an extent. Like, our video got undemonetized.
Yeah, but I'm sure it still exists on the platform.
Oh, yeah, there's still plenty of other ways it does it. Actually, especially if you discuss trans issues more than any other. Because one of the biggest, richest countries, the UK, is effectively anti-trans now.
Yep. All right, Cube.
Can we just say, hopefully J.K. Rowling finds a nice grave to dig herself into further, and what happens from there you can presume.
Cube, we live in a society. We didn't mention that the movies were produced in Canada. I didn't know that at the time.
Right. Well, they were, and we forgot to mention this because obviously the movies were just meant to be distributed in the entire continent of North America, or at least the English-speaking portion of it. Yeah,
and we did come at it from a very American perspective, like we usually do because we live in America.
Yeah.
But the substance of what we were talking about wouldn't have changed anyway.
Right, exactly. The point of the Q movies was still that the prison industrial complex is unjust, which is, while it's a bigger problem in America, it's still a problem in Canada.
Yeah, it still exists. And a lot of people like to think of Canada as some type of utopia just because it's not as bad as America. But that's definitely not true, especially for their
Indigenous people.
Yeah, especially for their indigenous population.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I kind of think of like America and Canada as being like two siblings that both really hate Indigenous people, but America is the one that gets the credit for not being as racist simply because they've already genocided 90 something percent of the Indigenous people. Whereas Canada's like, oh no, we're still working on it.
Yeah.
So it's bad in both countries, and so there's a lot of overlapping issues, which is why you get things like Cube, like Lost Girl, like Continuum, things made in Canada, but they don't ever try to bring to the surface that it's made in Canada, and they don't ever tell you that. Sometimes
And they often have elements that like wouldn't even be right in Canada.
Like guns, yeah.
Yeah, like guns being common and like...
Or a lot of times they'll set them literally like on the border between Canada and America, or at least they'll set it close enough and then never specify where, so you're not really sure.
Yeah, sometimes I think Lost Girl was in like New York or something.
I know Continuum was in Vancouver, which is literally a city in both America and Canada.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, though, so yeah, suffice to say that the whole point of the Cube experiments in the Cube movies was to see if a belief in God would occur in a vacuum.
Which is dumb because, like, why would you torture people and then see if they spontaneously believe in God?
Well, it's about evangelicalism,
Well,
which
why
is something
wouldn't you
really
just-
big in America, but Canada too.
But why wouldn't you just have them in a vacuum, you know, in a house or whatever, and just watch them and then see if belief in God comes out of it?
You're thinking evangelicals are rational.
Oh, true.
The whole point is fire by brimstone.
You're right, you're right.
You have to torture them and make them have the worst experience imaginable in order for them to require a faith in God to survive it. And they're seeing if that can happen without prior knowledge.
Uh-huh. And it seems like the answer is no.
Yeah, they wanted to prove God exists, and it hasn't been working, but they're going to keep doing it. Which, to me, is just a perfect distillation of how the Puritanism that really was kind of the initial religion founding on this continent in regards to the white settlers, just influences our punitive carceral system.
Yep.
And in America especially, but in Canada as well, both of these are white settler nations that wiped out indigenous people.
Yep. That's the last episode we needed to talk about.
All right, so this is going to be a bit of a short one. So sorry about that. I guess we just didn't make enough mistakes. We're just that good.
Sure.
Feel free to point out any additional mistakes you might have made, or sorry, you think we might have made. But hey, point out mistakes you have made. Tell us what are your mistakes. Okay, well, I'm Kyle.
I'm Kira.
Check out our Twitter @GameTheorems.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.